Good afternoon. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being a part of this class. I'm so excited. I am going to talk to you today about FOMO and moving FOMO into getting your bucket list. So what this will look like, I'll teach for 15 minutes. I'll open the floor for questions and live coaching after that. If you want to submit a question, use the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. If you want to come on for live coaching, I'll pause the recording and bring you on. Use the raise hand button for that at the bottom of your screen. So as you're listening to all of this and as you're processing the information, I want you to think about how this affects your life currently. And if you're new to me and you want to look deeper into this, I encourage you to go to the place where you found me, whether it be Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and send me a message. And I'd love to schedule time to talk with you about how this subject is affecting your life or how you can move through it in your life. So here we go. FOMO, fear of missing out. This used to be a massive driver in my life. I wasn't looking at other people and wishing that I were like them or had what they had. I was looking at my own life and my own bucket list, my own opportunities, and I was freezing and not going after them. I believed in the opportunity. I was excited about the possibilities, but I wasn't believing in me, that I would make the most of the opportunity, that I would do it right. And so I wouldn't do anything at all. So when I felt this fear of missing out, all I thought about was, I don't know how. I had these thoughts cycling through. I don't know how. I don't have the money. I don't have the time. And all of those created dread. So instead of being excited about this new thing, this a bucket list, like that's like your dreams, right? Those are the things you want to accomplish in your life. Instead of being excited about them, I felt dread when thinking about them. And as I look now deeper into what was happening there, I was really just setting priorities. When I was thinking, I don't know how, I was really thinking, I'm not willing to go through the discomfort of figuring it out. So I was prioritizing safety over the discomfort of unknown. When I was thinking, I don't have the money, I was prioritizing, I was really thinking, I don't think it's responsible to spend money in this way. And so I was prioritizing money in the bank over experiences. When I was thinking, I don't have time, what I really was thinking is, I don't feel comfortable asking other people to cover for me while I go have fun. So I was prioritizing other people's experience of life versus my experience of life, adventure, all the things. And so when I was afraid of missing out and I didn't go after the things that I was interested in because I was dreading all of those things, I was creating missing out. I was missing out. So instead of having a fear of missing out, I had the experience of missing out. I wasn't addressing my bucket list. I wasn't going after things that felt meaningful to me. And so I want to bring to you priorities and focus. The first thing, I was prioritizing things that weren't important to me, but my focus was on my fear, on the fear of missing out versus the possibility of an experience. My focus was on the missing. My focus was on the scarcity, the lack, the things that I didn't have. I didn't have the knowledge. I didn't have the money. I didn't have the time. All of my focus is on this whole of things that were missing in my life, the things that weren't there. So I was prioritizing that hole over the possibility of where I could go. So just a couple of things about me that might make this make sense. I love piecing together maybe why things happen. So I'm the third child in my family. I'm the baby. I'm the only girl. I made all A's without it crushing me in effort. You can say that I was taken care of and things came easily, except for high school math. I worked my buns off for that one, for those A's. But they were still there. It still worked out. I had a really strong work ethic, and also things worked out for me. So I had good friends. My parents were supportive. If I wanted to make extra money for something, I got hired for a job. If I wanted to go on a trip, I got to go. Things worked out for me. So the lesson I learned was things work out. But I also had a couple of lessons in that were a little off. The lesson that I sort of distorted was that when things work out, it's the things that have the power, not me making them work out. So I also totally missed a whole lesson in that, which was in the process of figuring out things so that they work out, there's discomfort, and that's totally fine. It can be uncomfortable as you figure out how to work things out. I didn't get that lesson, just missed it completely. So on one hand, I did believe that things worked out, but I didn't have the confidence that it was me that was making it. I thought it was luck. I thought I was lucky. So on the other hand, I also had I put this intense pressure on myself to for things to go well. I was terrified of making mistakes. I was terrified of it not working out and being my fault, doing it wrong. So the downfalls of that thinking are, if I'm lucky, my luck will run out. It always has the possibility to run out. If I'm terrified of making mistakes, I might never make them, but I also don't grow. I don't get to achieve the things because I'm stuck. I don't ever do them. I don't ever go after things unless they're easy. So that goes into that FOMO of that fear of missing out, because I was afraid to try. I was afraid I would mess it up. I was afraid that I wouldn't be lucky and that I couldn't make it happen. So what do you do with that? Okay, you identified, or maybe I've got FOMO, maybe whatever, things were easy. Maybe you can relate to those. Maybe you can see some element of yourself in some of that. What do you do with any of it though? Right? How do you go from FOMO to living in your bucket list? How do you create the life that you want in spite of luck or fear? Right? Because you can be lucky. Yeah, you can also work really hard. You can have fear, and you also can work anyway. You can go after it anyway. So the number one thing that I want to offer you is just being aware of where your focus is. Are you focusing on the fear, or are you focusing on what you want and the path to get there? I have this image that it serves me so much. And when I was in college, I did some whitewater kayaking and canoeing. Nothing intense. Don't get crazy. I'm not an adrenaline junkie. But when you're on a river, the current flows, and obviously there are things that are in rivers, right? There are turns in the river, there are rocks, there are limbs. And so if there's an obstacle in the flow of the water, sometimes it shifts the flow of the water. And so if there's a big boulder over here, the water will hit that boulder and it'll spin around it because it can't flow straight through it. It'll spin around it. But then that creates a momentum that creates kind of a whirlpool effect. And so you have what's called a hole in the river. And if you go into that hole with your boat, then sometimes it can be hard to get out of. Now, the adrenaline junkies think that's the best. They go surfing in those, but I like to go past them. So then if you didn't want to go in the hole, then you picked your path in the river. You picked the way you want to go. If you looked at the hole, you would look at it and then your body would shift towards it. It would follow your eyes, and then your paddle would follow your body, and all of a sudden you're in the hole. But if you looked at your path that you wanted, the hole's there. You can have fear of it if you want to. It's there, it's happening, it's real, but you choose the path that you want. And so you look at the line in the river that you are going to go down, and you're going to paddle towards where your eyes are going. Your body faces that way, and therefore you go down that path in the river. That happens to us a lot in life. Always. Where you focus is where you go. And so if you're looking at the lack, the scarcity, the things that you don't have in your life, then that is where you stay. You stay in the hole, swirling around, banging your head against the rock, maybe. If you focus on the path that you want to take, that is where you will go. If you have a dream that you want to follow, you don't look at what you don't have to get there. You look at where you want to go, and you start figuring it out. You just start paddling towards that path. So number one, when you find yourself in FOMO maybe, or just with a dream, you want to look at where is your focus. Are you focusing on scarcity, or are you focusing on the path of where you want to go? Number two is figuring out your path, right? You may see, I don't want to go there, but you may not know how you want to get to where you want to go. So figuring out your path can be a game of would you rather. My son loves this game. Mama, would you rather the beach or the mountains? Would you rather reading a book or going on a hike? Would you rather going out for an amazing meal or going out to see a really fun play? Notice I'm giving you amazing options either way. There are no wrong answers. So when you're playing the game of would you rather, you're just kind of figuring out what you like, what feels better, what can you fine tune? Oh no, I don't like that. Turns out I hate the beach because the sand sticks to me and I've got sand everywhere. Turns out like I feel like I need to rest, so reading a book feels better than going on a hike. Now, so again, we've got two great answers, but sometimes you're going to need one thing, and sometimes you might be ready to explore another thing, right? So when you're figuring out your path, there are no wrong answers. You just start asking yourself to start discerning what feels better. As you build a relationship with your path, with what you like, instead of the whole, what you don't like, you receive clarity instead of dread. So remember back in that FOMO, when I was focusing on the whole, what I was feeling about my dreams, like these are the good things. What I was feeling about my dreams was dread. So now when I start figuring out my path, when I start figuring out what I like, when I start figuring out the preferences I have for when I want to go, where I want to go, then I get clarity. With clarity, I'm going to take a lot more action than I am with dread. With dread, I'm going to take no action. With clarity, I'm going to understand what's important to me and start going towards that. So number three, when you have this goal, when you have this dream, when you have this clarity about what you want, then you get to reverse engineer it. You get to say, here's the end result. Once I'm down the river, once I'm at my destiny, here's what that is. Now I don't have a clue how to get there, right? So you start brainstorming. What are all the things I'd have to know? What are all the things I'd have to learn? Let's take an example of you want to buy a house. You want to be a homeowner someday. And so If you have that big dream of owning a home right now, you don't have a down payment for a home, maybe. And so you'd have to figure out a lot of things. Number one, what are the features I want in my house? How much would a house like that cost? If I know how much it costs, what's the percentage of that I would want to have down? How do I figure out what's out there, even as far as loans? What do I need to do? These are all the questions of the figuring it out. So once you have that list of things you need to know, what's the money I have coming in? What's the money I have going out? Where can I find a little bit of money to set aside? Do I have a savings account? Can I automate my savings, my income to go into my savings account? Once you break all that down, then you have a list of things you can start doing. Then you have a paddle stroke you can start taking. I can do this action. I can do that action. I can figure this out. I can learn about that. You start setting these small strokes, these small goals that you can go towards. And then when you're going to them each week, know that part of that discomfort, part of that figuring it out is you're not going to want to take those strokes. You're not going to want to do those activities because fear is going to come up, or whatever emotion you have about what you're planning is going to come up. Uncertainty, disbelief, who knows? All of the things will come up as you're going for something that you don't have right now. Guaranteed they will. So when you say, this week I'm going to accomplish this thing, when you go to accomplish it, you're not going to want to do it. For sure, you're not going to want to do it. So you do it anyway. So in that, the main thing that I want to tell you in this reverse engineering step number 3 is do what you say you're going to do anyway, because you have the bigger goal. You're looking down that river. You're looking at the path you want to take, and you know that you can see what you want. You can see it, and you're going towards it. So even though that hole exists, even though there are all of these uncomfortable feelings, you're going to take those strokes anyway. You're going to work through that fear and just keep going. You're going to build strength in your brain when you do that. When you show up, even though you're afraid, even though you don't want to, you're going to build integrity with yourself. You're going to know that you're creating the future down that path. You're going to show up for the future you that's got that thing, that's had that experience, that has that knowledge. You're eliminating fear of missing out because you're in it. So step 1 is become aware of your focus. Are you focusing on the whole, or are you focusing on the path? Number 2 is figure out the path. If you want to go this way, what is this way? What am I liking? What's my game of would you rather? And start just adding those things up. Discerning. Step 3 is reverse engineering. Once you have an idea of your path, start listing all the things you may need to do to get there and just start paddling towards them. So tell me what comes up for you. Use the Q&A, use the raise hand, and tell me what's going on for you. Is it FOMO? Is it what's happening with you when you think of the fear of missing out, or achieving goals, or your bucket list? All right. This person says, I have the other people's FOMO. I'm looking at the other people and I want what they have. And what I want to ask you is, why don't you have it? Why aren't you getting it too? And in the meantime, going back to that step 1, where is your focus? If you have a fear of missing out of what these people are doing, where is your focus? And they say, resources. I don't have the resources. I don't have the money. I'm working 2 jobs. I don't have the time to do the research, but I also am not making the money to go after what I want. And so if you're in that place where you're like, okay, I don't have the resources, I'm going to tell you where your focus is. It's on the whole, the things you don't have. And so whenever you're looking at, I don't have these resources, I don't have the time because I've got these 2 jobs, I'm not making the money to go after whatever your thing is, that's okay, right? You don't ever have to beat yourself up. Awareness is not about a beat down afterwards. Awareness is about gaining clarity. So, okay, when I'm thinking I don't have the resources, I'm focusing on what I don't have instead of what I do have. So once you are able to say, okay, I'd like to shift that to what I do have or where I do want to go. So what is it about what you're seeing in those other people? What feeling does that create for you? What are the emotions? You see them in some experience and you think, when I would be in that experience, I would feel what? So then when you figure out what it is you want to feel, you can start looking at what makes me feel that way. Is it the beach or the mountains? You can start playing that game of would you rather to start clarifying your path. Then you start focusing on that and start asking yourself questions instead of why don't they have all these resources? Why don't I? You can start asking yourself those valuable questions of what would I need? What skills do I need to build to gain those resources? Where could I find the extra time that I'm going to use to do this thing? Where can I find the extra money to invest in myself in this way? Ask those open questions. I talked about that last week, that help you get to where you're going. When you're asking good, valuable questions that open your mind up, then you're going to get there faster. Thanks for that question. That's amazing. What else is coming up? What do you not have now that you want in the future? Somebody says more time to be with my family. That's a great thing to focus on. So when you're focusing on more time to be with your family, you're focusing on, you have 2 options, right? You can focus on the time you don't have, or you can focus on the time you want, right? The time you're going towards. So as you're sort of playing your game of would you rather, what would you want that time to look like? What are tiny ways you can have that time now? What do you already have that you could sink a little deeper into and find that feeling you're looking for? If you want more time with your family, I'm guessing you don't want to just be sitting around them, not talking to each other. My guess is you want connection with them. So in what ways are you connecting now? How does that feel? So when you're moving from scarcity to abundance, you're not only shifting your focus from what you don't have towards your path, but you're also figuring out abundance. How do I have it now? How am I going to build more of what I have? How am I going to gain it in a new way? All of these add on to that feeling of yes, 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 yes. Bring me more, right? It's great. I'm loving what I've got and I'm loving where I'm going. A client I had this morning was talking about the time that she has when she's resting. She's always thinking of the things she should or could be doing with that time. So instead of sinking into the rest for the sake of the rest, there's something that's telling her she needs to rest, right? There's something that has made her decide now is the time to stop moving, but her mind is still saying, nope, you still should be moving. You're not doing it right. Keep moving. And so in her mind, she's still moving, but in a very unproductive way because she's not getting anywhere, right? So that focus is not on the abundance of what rest does for her. It was on the lack of what she's not accomplishing. So you may find that in your life where you aren't necessarily having FOMO. You're not necessarily have this bucket list that's unchecked, but you're not feeling that depth of accomplishment in what you're doing right now. And so when you think about that, whenever you're in something, how are you in it? Are you in it very distracted in a different way, or are you in it like loving it, soaking it up, gaining what you can? Now listen, when you're in it, I want to offer you don't have to be totally happy every time you're in something for it to be worthwhile. And I would say that idea does keep us from feeling satisfaction a lot, is the idea that satisfaction always feels good. But it doesn't actually. It doesn't actually. Sometimes we work really hard and we might pull muscles while we're working hard, but we also are happy for the work that we did. So sometimes hard work feels terrible and the result is worth it. Sometimes we feel like we only deserve it, the satisfaction, if we work hard. And that's not necessarily true either. Sometimes the accomplishment can come with ease. I did that very, very clearly this week. There was something I was working on, and I had been thinking about it for weeks. When I actually sat down to do it, it was a mess, but also a lot faster than all the time I had been thinking about it. So it actually, the accomplishment, part of the accomplishment was like, oh my gosh, that was so easy. What in the world have I been doing? I was elated because it was done. It was finished. I had the feeling of accomplishment from getting it done. And I recognized it was so easy. I had spent so much time thinking about it that if I had just been doing it, and I'm not even beating myself up about that, I'm just like chuckling, right? It's how it goes sometimes. So that idea, when you're going from where am I focusing? Am I focusing on the scarcity, or am I focusing on the abundance? Am I focusing on what I don't have, or am I focusing on where I'm going? That awareness will help you build more of what you want. So even in that awareness, you're already pointing down the river and you're heading in that way. So if there aren't any other questions, I am so grateful for your time. I am grateful for the energy you put into this class and into learning these things, because it really does open up the feelings of satisfactions, the feeling satisfaction and joy and accomplishment that you can have in your life just by knowing exactly where your focus is and where you want to go. So if this seems interesting to you, if you want to dive into it a little bit deeper, I encourage you to reach out to me. You can go to any of my profiles on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and send me a message, and I'd love to schedule time with you. In the meantime, feel free to watch some other classes on YouTube, and I will see you next week.